But first of all, let's reflect on yesterday. Brentford against Liverpool. What a game it was. And it was live on talkSPORT. We were delighted to have it here. Joe Shannon and David Connolly doing a sterling job on the commentary as well. 3-3 it finished. I mean, it was an unbelievable game of football. That is entertainment for you. The Bees going toe-to-toe with Liverpool. Didn't win, but it was a classic game. Incident-packed and kept you on the edge of your seat from the first minute.
Brentford have made it, and obviously Thomas Frank as well, is when you go into the Brentford Community Stadium, you know that you're going to have to be physically and mentally at 100% because Brentford are going to test you. Beating Arsenal, obviously, first game of the season, which, to be honest, wasn't really a shock because you knew what was coming because Brentford would pressure, they get it forward. When you look at them, Sam, all their players look like that they have belief. They have belief in what Thomas Frank is asking them to do. They've got belief in their structure. And they've got two players up front with Wermo and Ivan Toney who will harry, they'll get in behind, they'll get themselves into the box when the ball goes wide. They load players into the box, they push their midfield players up. So Liverpool, trust me, they were at full stretch yesterday. You know, sometimes when you play teams that have come up, you think, well, if we're at about 80, 90%, our quality will overrun the opposition. Brentford don't give you that option, especially at home.
And what I like about them is that they've come into the Premier League. They've carried over their form from last year at the back end of the season where they got promoted from the Championship. And they've adapted slightly. They tightened up. I mean, I know yes, they conceded 3 goals. They were playing Liverpool, but they've tightened up at the back. They've learned how to keep clean sheets on a more often basis. I'm going to say that they're this year's Wolves. They're this year's Leeds. They're this year's Sheffield United. That surprise package that comes up from the Championship and then just imprints their way of playing on the Premier League rather than changing completely to becoming quite regressive and just about trying to hang on to staying in there or not doing very much. And you spoke a little bit about Norwich earlier on and the way that they approach coming back to the Premier League. And it feels to me whenever I see Norwich, it's like, well, they're okay in the Championship.
They're brilliant in the Championship.
And they're fantastic at getting promoted. Yes. But when they get into the Premier League, it's almost like they've got an inferiority complex and they cannot impose themselves as they would like on games. Or their style's wrong, or they haven't adapted as they should do in order to be able to compete in the Premier League. And I think the statistics show that. Yeah,
maybe there isn't enough pressure on Daniel Farke then, because they have to change their recruitment. We've spoke about that before, getting players that are experienced in the Premier League. But if you look at Brentford, they haven't got any players that are experienced in the Premier League. It's
exactly
the manager who is 100% convinced that his style of play and the players he got, their recruitment is obviously excellent. If you look at Brentford as well, they've got more of probably physical presence than Norwich. You look at Ayer and Janssen especially. What was he, £5 million?
But that is the other thing, isn't it? They're spending money sensibly. They're making money because they're creating players, developing players, and then bumping them on for a big price. You know, the likelihood is, and there was a brilliant package yesterday on Game Day in which Alex Crook spoke to Rasmus Ankersen, who is the sporting director of Brentford, but also the chairman of FC Midtjylland, which is another club that Matthew Bennon, who is the owner of Brentford,
it's the Moneyball
owns. It's the whole. Yeah. Moneyball's probably a little bit simplistic, really, in terms of that everybody just thinks everything's done on a computer. That's not the case.
No, they actually go and watch these.
They spend a lot of time scouting.
Yeah.
They're very good with the personality sort of breakdown as well, making sure that person's got the right attributes, the character to be able to knock themselves on and to want to buy into the whole philosophy of the football club. So there's so much going on there, and has been going on for a very, very long time. And you just wonder why others haven't done that. Maybe it's a blueprint for the future.
Well, they just have a different philosophy. Norwich's style is different to Brentford's, and when mentioned yesterday with Daniel Farke, he actually changed it to 3 at the back, and he played the 2 up front with Pukki and Sargent. But they didn't get it forward quick enough. They was going the 3 at the back, just when it goes across from left to right, back again. And Everton were probably yesterday at, I'd say, 60-70%. And if you're playing up front, this is where the character comes in, where maybe Brentford got a little bit of edge about them, a little bit of niceness in a good way about them.
Jurgen Klopp was talking about the high balls into the box all afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is, they play test ramps, and I think Ivan Toney probably epitomised that, because in a good way, he has an arrogance in a good way, because someone asked him about playing against Virgil van Dijk. He'd be brilliant to test yourself best, and he went, no, he's test himself against me. And he said it with a bit of irony is if to say, no, this isn't for. I'm actually looking forward to seeing if I'm as good as what I think I am.
Yeah.
And trust me, he's going to know he's been in a game. And Ivan Toney, I heard the same thing commentary coming home, and David Connolly said Ivan Toney was a handful throughout the whole 90 minutes. Had the assist for the first goal, little flick on,
brilliant.
Just a little help on its way. Had a goal disallowed, which again he had no doubt in his mind that he was going to score. Do you know what I mean? That confidence and Mbeumo, they work well as a pair. So it's just having that conviction and putting the opposition under pressure. And we're comparing with Norwich, and there was probably a couple of thousand Norwich fans that made the long trip. So I don't think they really got the feeling that Norwich were really giving it a go. You know, really giving it with some conviction. Think, right, we're going to cause Everton some problems. So Everton very comfortable. When you play Brentford, especially at Brentford, you ain't going to be comfortable. You ain't. They're going to test you. Now, away from them, they might have to tweak it a little bit, where they might sit a bit deeper and choose their times when they're going to release players forward. But at home, soon as it gets wide, how many times did you see yesterday? We watched the highlights. When the ball's coming into the box, they've got 3, 4, 5 get themselves in the box, challenging. So that, you know full well, you've got to be on your A game. Brentford, I said beginning of the season, I thought they had more chance of standing up than anybody. I'm convinced that Brentford will be fine, as long as Ivan Toney stays fit.
Yes, and stays at the club, because the other thing they suggested yesterday was actually, 50 million quid comes in for him in the January transfer window. They'll probably take it, or maybe not in January, but maybe
I think
next
you're
year.
better off waiting until you've stayed up, and then you can say, right, we get the money, and then we get his money and reinvest.
But it's not just about Brentford, because David Moyes yesterday after the game against Leeds United was talking about Marcelo Bielsa, and he was saying, I really think that their style, Leeds' style, is unique. There are not many teams, I think, in the world who play football like Leeds United. They're a brilliant addition to the Premier League. If I was a supporter, I'd be looking forward to watching them. It's how they deal with it's how they deal with the ball. It's how they go about their business. I think they're absolutely superb to watch as well. And I think Brentford, you'd want to go and watch them. Leeds, you'd want to go and watch them. And the more teams that you get coming into the league, and no disrespect, there was a time when West Brom would come into the league every single year. They'd go down, they'd come back, they'd defend for their lives, they'd just about go down or just about survive, and then it's repeat every single year. And they didn't offer anything to the Premier League. Brentford, Sheffield United, when they came up the first season with their overlapping centre-backs and their change of style, they offered something to the Premier League.
I'll go back even a bit further, Blackpool under Ian Holloway, where they played free-flowing open football. When Charlie Adams came to the fore, didn't he, where he was their sort of playmaker in that quarterback position, like pushing people forward. And in the end, they just failed, didn't they? They just went down. But the Blackpool fans, that roller coaster ride they went on, they think, actually, we've enjoyed watching our team going away, and we've given everything, and we're not sacrificing our principles. We're going to, actually, you're better off going and attacking and maybe getting caught out rather than survival football, when you think, you know what, we haven't really give it a go. We haven't really sort of expressed ourselves as much as what we should. It's playing without fear as well. That's what you've got to get into your players. No fear and the belief.
And also, I mean, there is an argument with some clubs, West Brom may be a prime example of this, that if they keep yo-yoing long enough, then they can raise enough money so they can stay up further down the line. But West Brom is currently in the Championship for a start, and Norwich are heading back that way. So the yo-yo thing hasn't really worked for many clubs. I think Burnley went down, came up, went down, were away for a while, came up, went down, came back up again.
Straight away, yeah.
And they've sustained their position in the Premier League up until this point. But really and truly, the yo-yo thing doesn't seem to have a pattern that ends up with them staying in the Premier League, that club staying in the Premier League. Look, I think it'd be interesting to see how Brentford deal with disappointment, because in the future, that will come.
They're going to go on a run where they don't win for 5-6 games. They might have a couple of draws, and then it's whether you keep that belief and the players keep positive. That'll be Thomas Frank's massive test.
And which has been a test and is a test for Marcelo Bielsa, who said yesterday that, a succession of bad results, the absence of points, the position in the table, they're all factors and they affect the morale of any team. But he said, because of the performances have been actually quite good, it may end up that your recovery is a little bit quicker. But it does have an effect, there's no doubt about that.
But he's got to be a good managers can't blink. That's the point. When you look at the managers coming in for training, if players can spot little differences in body language, or if there's little doubts in managers, or if they start tinkering it or going away from what their beliefs are, then players will spot it. But the belief, Norwich have the belief in the way that Daniel Farke plays, but it's too soft for the Premier League. You know, you have to have an edge when you haven't got the ball.
There's got to be steel. There's got to be
Yes.
competitiveness. There's got to be, as you say, an edge.